Hello, snow leopards. Welcome back to your second unit, day 2. We're going to continue on with our goal from yesterday, which is to develop a deeper understanding of how we get energy from food. By the end of the period, you should be having your answers in your doodle sheet from I through M. Complete your lab on exercise and respiration. Please make sure and go outside for that one. And complete your reading on diabetes and answering those questions. Okay, let's get started. So, one time that we need a lot of energy is when we exercise. What happens when we exercise? How does our body respond? Record some ideas in Doodle Box I. So go ahead and put me on pause and record that now. Okay, burning for energy. So here we've got our one of our equations here. You've got carbon fuel, C, H, and some O, plus oxygen, and that becomes matter rearranged, which is carbon dioxide and water, as well as energy, right? So if you think about our burning reaction and the ways in which our bodies respond to exercise, is there a way to test whether there is a relationship between the rate of the chemical reaction and the increased energy needs during exercise? So think about what that means. We want to test if there's a relationship between the rate of the reaction, so how fast that reaction takes place, and we're going to balance that with the increased energy that is needed during exercise. So here's our investigation. What is the connection between increased energy demand, in this case exercise, that's what you're needing the energy for, and the rate of burning? And we're going to measure that by the output of carbon dioxide. At the back of the class, there is a data sheet and a lab sheet. So go ahead and get that information and come back to this. All right, so hopefully you have your lab sheet. This is the table where you're going to be recording everything. Read through the lab sheet entirely. Figure out what you're going to be doing. Keep in mind there's 2 parts to this. Part A, you're running a series of tests when you're just regularly at rest, normal in the classroom. Then you're going to go outside, do 2 minutes of really vigorous jumping jacks as fast as you can go, and then run those 3 tests again. So before you even start, make sure you really know what those tests are about. There are straws and the bromothionyl blue solution in the back, and everything should be there for you. Okay. Once you have finished your tests, you can come back to this point in the presentation. All right. Once you have your tests finished, get a snow leopard data sheet and go ahead and record your information. Maybe not all the snow leopards are at your pace, but I want you to have it compiled. So record your information on the worksheet, just your bits, and then leave it there and continue on. And take a breath now that you can rest. Okay, burning for energy. So you saw that we produce more carbon dioxide when we exercise. So there's definitely a connection between exercise and the rate of the reaction that gives us energy. But is there a connection between exercise and matter? So what happens to our mass when we exercise? Here we have the biggest loser. When he went into that contest a few years back, he was weighing 403 pounds. And by the way, he happens to be from just north of us, up in Marin. Then, here he is looking good several months later, 5 months later. So, here's your challenge question. What happened to the 215 pounds of matter that he lost? Where did it go? Why don't you put your ideas in Doodle Box J? Put me on pause and write in your answers for Doodle Box J. What have we figured out so far? Food and oxygen takes energy when you combine it. So there's a drop in energy, and that becomes carbon dioxide and water. Energy, in the process of having it broken down, comes out of that equation as well. And we know that food that you're putting in your body, we know what it's made of. We know that there are proteins, fats, and carbohydrates in there. But are all of these inputs used to get energy? We're going to try and narrow this down. Which of these molecules provide our energy? In other words, which one is our fuel? Do you think proteins fuel us, fats fuel us, or carbohydrates fuel us? Okay, so what's that carbon-containing fuel in living things? So we've seen that our production of carbon dioxide increases when we need more energy. So we have even more evidence that when we're doing something like burning food in our bodies to get energy, that carbon dioxide is increasing. But we also recognize that if we exercise a lot, we get rid of mass or matter, and we think about the biggest loser. So we produce more CO2 when we need more energy. But we know that we also, if we exercise a lot, we get rid of mass, like our biggest loser. What is that initial fuel or reactant? Well, okay, we know it's food because you know you get energy from food. But how do we write a reaction for that? All right, so let's step back. Look at this delicious veggie burger. What happens to that hamburger or veggie burger after we eat it? Well, you put that fantastic veggie burger with its tomatoes and lettuce and onions and cheese, and we're going to pretend that's a whole grain bread. You put that into your digestive tract. It goes through your body. We know that some of that gets absorbed into the bloodstream, and the rest of it is pooped out. But while it's in the digestive tract, what's going on? Well, let's think about what that burger is made of. What is it made of? If you would break it down, what is it? So, what components of food are available to cells? So, based on your knowledge of what food is made of, working with your partner to make a simple diagram showing what you think happens to the matter in your burger between chewing and when it is absorbed into your bloodstream. Make sure you address what is your digestive system breaking food into and what exactly gets absorbed into the bloodstream. And just make sure that you're just talking to your partner. I'm going to say that. You don't have to write this down, but talk to your partner, figure that out. I think as snow leopards, you should know what this is already, but just check in with each other. So put me on pause and do that. Okay, yum, yum, here's the mouth, food. And we put in what? Well, hopefully with your partner you discussed fats and carbs and proteins. Yum, yum, yum. So what happens next? It breaks into its component polymers. Remember that from our fantastic amoeba sisters who I know you love. Do you think it stops there? No, the polymers get broken down. So the food gets broken down into those three components, into its polymers. Then the polymers get broken down into monomers. So digestion breaks them down to carbs for glucose. Proteins become amino acids. Fats become fatty acid and glycerol. Those monomers are then absorbed into the bloodstream. Here's our bloodstream right there, and you can see it's kind of this vein cut open there, and you can see a nice round red blood cell in there. It goes in. Just as a reminder, you've seen this slide. So what's the difference here? We've got these different molecular shapes, proteins, carbs, and fats, right? All of them have CHO in common. Proteins also have nitrogens. So polymers and monomers. So proteins, when you break them down smaller, become these amino acids. You can see how they're linked together. Carbs become glucose. Fat, broken down, becomes those little finger-like structures come off. The fatty acids are broken down, and then you have just the glycerols. Okay. I want you to record these ideas in Doodle Box X. Record all of these ideas in Doodle Box X. Put me on pause. All right, so we have these three. Which monomer is the fuel? Or do you think it's more than one? So which one or ones do you think is our fuel and why? All three, two of the three, some combination, one of the three. Write down your ideas in Doodle Box L. Put me on pause. All right, hopefully Doodle Box L is filled out. Now, what's the carbon-containing fuel? Our bodies work to supply glucose to all of our cells every minute of every day. This is one of the reasons why I was talking to you, or some of you, about your carbs. You really should be eating carbohydrates because your bodies need that glucose. People who have difficulty regulating the amount of glucose in their blood and the amount that gets into the cells have a condition called diabetes. Our brains in particular require a very consistent supply of glucose. And this is also a huge cost of our incredible evolution. Muscles, have a need for lots of glucose all at once. So they store it right in the tissue. And they even store extra oxygen, which makes them red. The importance of glucose. Here is your brain. Our brains use about 50% of the energy required each and every day. That's actually an adult brain. You need more. The evolution of increased blood supply and delivery of glucose to our brains is thought to be a key step in human evolution. And it allowed our brains to become larger than most mammals and to burn more energy. The importance of glucose. When we exercise, we don't eat as we do it, and we also don't have to eat right before we exercise. So where's that fuel coming from in that moment when we're running, jumping, hitting a soccer ball, swinging a bat, dancing across the floor? Complete the reading about glucose and exercise and answer those questions at the end, and that's going to give you a bigger insight into all of that. Okay, the importance of glucose. Hopefully you discovered from the reading. When we exercise, our muscles and heart, increase their demand for glucose. So we actually store glucose in muscle. It's got to be right in there because you need that. And then you can see this incredibly complex glucose where you've got your glycogen and your glucose units, right? This is all super small on the molecular level. So why is muscle red? Because of the oxygen. When we exercise, our muscles, we store oxygen in muscle too. And so that's myoglobin, which is a protein, and it's the iron that holds the oxygen. And this is the same structure that's seen in blood cells that carry the oxygen, the hemoglobin protein. All right. Importance of glucose. Do you know of any people who have to be careful about their blood glucose? Why is this? How do we normally regulate our blood glucose? It's actually a really key point in terms of diet and what's going on in your body. We'll continue to look at this and talk about it. Go ahead and read that information on diabetes and answer the questions at the end. Put me on pause and do that now. All right, the importance of glucose. Here, let's look at this. This is a giant graph here. So let's look at this. If you look at your y-axis, what is that? Blood glucose levels. Yeah? So this is your blood glucose level. And then you've got insulin, which is a hormone actually in your body run by proteins, and your insulin levels. Okay? So here you can see your glucose blood levels as they go throughout the day. Now, these peaks are assuming that you're eating. Obviously, if it's breakfast time and you haven't eaten anything, then your diagram isn't going to be looking like this. But you can see that as your glucose levels rise, your insulin blood levels rise. Okay? And you can see this correlative pattern. And hopefully you're connecting this back with the reading that you just did. So what's the reaction? What is the formula for glucose? What's the other reactant? What are the products? Let's create a balanced chemical equation for burning glucose. Your balanced chemical equation in Doodle Box M. Let's go ahead and put in Your equation in Doodle box M, your carbon fuel plus your oxygen becomes CO2 and H2O with energy being given off. Okay, this is what you got. We have a reaction. So here you've got your glucose and your oxygen, okay? And the energy comes off, and that becomes carbon dioxide and water. Okay, cellular respiration is what this is called. So what do we know about the reactants, which, by the way, is the title of this unit? What do we know about the reactants and the products in terms of matter and energy? Think back to our model for chemical reactions. Let's record these ideas in Doodle box M. All right, and that is your final bit for today. Congratulations, and I will see you tomorrow.